Hey, it's Dr. Joel Rudman, State Representative for House District 3. And if you want to know what's going on in Florida politics, especially politics here in the Florida Panhandle, you have one choice. Blue Collar Voice with Tommy Nichols. That's my bud. Go get him, Tommy.
All right, guys. Tommy Nichols, Blue Collar Voice, here with Dr. Joel Rudman, our newly elected House Representative. He's replacing the great J.R. Williamson. Oh, man. It pretty much became official last night, huh?
Yes, sir, Tommy. Although, as you know, the big deal for us was the primary.
Right.
So, to be perfectly honest with you, once the primary was over, I've pretty much been working it, unofficially, of course, not in any kind of official capacity, but the actual work started the day after the primary in terms of reaching out, building fences, building relationships, letting people know that the 3rd District has spoken and that we're going to get hopefully fantastic things done in the legislature this upcoming session.
I believe we will. You've proven from day one that you are somebody that is willing to go out and earn support, and earn the people's, to get behind you. You're not somebody just going to talk and ask. No, your actions have proven who you are and what you're about. And, that's something I always preach on. And your actions show what you're really about. And your actions have proven from day one what you are. And we need somebody like that. J.R. was a fighter. J.R. was somebody that when we needed something, he made sure we got it. And so that continues with you. And so I'm comfortable with you going in there fighting for us. So thank goodness we got the right guy in there.
Well, thank you, Tommy. I really appreciate those kind words. I want to earn those words. I want to earn that respect. Like I said, it's very, very nice of you to say. Of course, it's like two different settings. You saw me in campaign mode, which is kind of one separate fight. It's one separate contest. Now the real contest begins. Now the real contest starts in terms of helping the people who put me there, and it's in terms of making our 3rd District better, making it the envy of the rest of the state.
Right. Now, when did it hit home basically that you're the guy now? When did that finally dawn on you?
So primary evening, we had a function right down here, just down the road here in Navarre at Johnny Houston's restaurant. Great restaurant if you've never been there. But that night when the incoming Speaker of the Florida House calls you, and you're waiting to hear final tallies, you're waiting to hear final results. Numbers are kind of trickling in from Okaloosa. You're getting a few from Santa Rosa, and then you get that call from this incoming Speaker of the House. And of course, being a newbie, I had to turn around to some of the elected officials that were at my party. I said, "Hey, that was the Speaker of the House. Does that mean I'm in?" And they had to say, "That means you're in."
Yeah. So he's not going to waste a phone call.
funny story. So last night, driving to the general election, we held just a little impromptu, kind of an understated get together over in Okaloosa, because we wanted the people in Laurel Hill, we wanted the people in Baker, wanted the people in Holt to know that, look, we haven't forgotten about you.
Absolutely.
We're majority Santa Rosa, but we're looking out for y'all too.
Right.
So on the way to my little impromptu kind of understated event in Okaloosa, get that same call from the Speaker, because this time it's the general election. Got that call about, I don't know, 6:30 at night, 6:15. And of course, he's got a whole list of people he's going to call this evening. And I could probably imagine that I was probably the first call. We kind of joked, and he said, if there were an apocalypse and there was one Republican district left in Florida, he said, you would be the one.
Yeah.
So we're very proud of our conservative roots up here in the 3rd District, and everyone in Florida knows exactly how conservative we are up here.
We've proven that time after
time and again. Don't think Governor DeSantis doesn't know it either.
Oh, I'm sure. Just go back and look at our history, all the people that we've sent to Tallahassee, from the guy that I learned from, the legendary Greg Evers, to J.R., to Jeff Miller, and now yourself. You were in one heck of a class, sir. Yeah. That's an honor right there.
It's very, very humbling. Like I said, I haven't
goosebumps. Wow.
I haven't heard. I haven't earned any trust yet. I don't have any reputation or record to run on. But my goal is that 2 years from now, if I feel like I've done a good job for you, I'd like that record to kind of speak for itself. I know initially when nobody knows you, I know there's a lot of door knocking, there's a lot of advertising. I would love to be the type of representative where people don't need to say, well, let me sit down. I'd like my actions to speak for me.
There you go.
For like, just like some of those illustrious names that you mentioned earlier, I would love to be in their company.
Absolutely. You know, they got to where, you know, nobody, when it came election time, there was no need to even campaign. They knew who was going to run. So yeah, you get in there, you bust your rear end, and you stand up for us to fight for us. You're going to be right there along with them. I have no doubt about that at all.
But you got to do the right thing. You got to listen to the people.
And that's the big thing right there. So many times we elect folks in there and we think they're going to do right and do good, and we get mollywopped and they get in there and get a big head. And I'm not saying it's going to be you. I'm just saying this is the facts. And they get in there and they forget that we're the ones that are in charge. All they are is our voice.
That's right.
I've not seen any signs of that with you, so let's just keep it that way.
Exactly.
Now, what are you planning on, some of the first things you plan on really getting rolling? When you actually get down to Tallahassee, if you don't mind me asking.
Absolutely. So, Tommy, you know I ran on a platform of freedom. That includes medical freedom. As a medical doctor, that is my first priority. I'm going to sit down with the speaker. I'm going to sit down with my fellow representatives, and I'm going to let them know that some of these actions that you've seen other governors take in other states where they don't value freedom, I'm going to educate them that, look, guys, those emergency powers exist in Florida too. It's just, thank God, we have a governor that's never abused that authority. Now, the question remains, what happens when the next guy comes in? When DeSantis moves on, or when he hopefully becomes president one day, how much trust do we have in the guy who follows him? So my answer would be, thank God for DeSantis, but to protect us from the Andrew Gillums of the world, to protect us from the Charlie Crists of the world, to protect us from the next guy, I'd like to see those emergency powers rewritten. I would like it to be extremely difficult for any bureaucrat, elected or unelected, to ever use a virus or a medical condition or a reason like that to lock down your home, your church, your school, or your business. And I think it can be done. I've already, like I said, even though I wasn't formally elected until last evening, I've been in talks for months with attorneys who have been looking into this for years. Ever since this whole thing went down in 2020, they've been looking at the Florida statutes on how to make that impossible. So we are consulting with people who can help me rewrite that statute, propose a bill to rewrite that statute, and I think that's my first priority. Don't let 2020 ever happen again, certainly not in the state of Florida.
Gotcha. Yeah, and you're absolutely correct right there. Could you imagine if, we was another state, I'm not going to name any names, but we were blessed to be living where we live. So thank goodness for that.
And I think I will have a very receptive ear in Governor DeSantis. Obviously, everyone out there knows he gets it. He also ran on a platform of freedom. He has done extremely well with the programs and the policies that he has enacted and has pushed forward. So it's my job, I feel, as your representative, it's my job to get to Tallahassee and speak to his staff, speak to the governor, speak to likewise minded representatives and say, guys, we're doing real good on the freedom front, but here's a couple items y'all might have neglected or might not have realized that are in the statute. Let's go all the way with this. If we're for freedom, let's go all the way with this.
And that's going to be the benefit of having an actual doctor, somebody, a pro, basically, not just somebody that's, listening to other doctors. No, you're actually living, breathing, you know what it's about. So we're at an advantage right there. So absolutely. Now, along the trail, meeting folks, everything, what were some of the things that, other than the medical one that you hit on, that were some of the ones that the citizens really cared about and wanted you to, try to push across? So
infrastructure is a big need in our district, and of course that's where you've got to fight for dollars. It's almost like diving for dollars, and that's why I've been trying to build some of these relationships here in the waning weeks of the campaign. because I had no opposition in the general, I spent a lot of time making those connections throughout the state. Those of you that follow me on Facebook, Dr. Joel Rudman for Florida House, or if you follow me on Twitter, you've seen, wow, he's been in Orlando, he's been in South Florida, he's been in Tallahassee, he's over in Walton County talking to the state rep coming out of Walton County. It's very important to establish these relationships, because when you have a legislative body of 120 people, one vote isn't going to get anything done. You've got to be persuasive, you've got to be articulate, you've got to know your facts. And it's amazing, Tommy, when you get out and talk, when you talk to people in Jacksonville Beach, when you talk to people in Port St. Joe, when you talk to people in Seminole County, Florida, when you talk to people in Palm Beach, Martin County down in South Florida, tell me, it's amazing how much we have in common. You know, we don't, even though we are the most conservative, I proudly tell everyone we are the reddest district. Now, Tommy, I'm going to say we're the reddest district in the reddest state, because there is no doubt that Florida is the last line for freedom in America. We don't just talk the talk, we walk the walk. So
we proved it with our actions.
So even though we have the bulk of even though we are the bedrock of conservatism in this state, there are conservatives throughout this state. And if you go look at last night's results, there was a red wave. The misunderstanding was the red wave was in Florida.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at places like Miami-Dade, you look at places like Palm Beach County, where you don't expect a Republican to be competitive. Tommy, I'm going to have colleagues that are Republicans from Miami Beach, from Palm Beach, from Boca Raton. It's going to be a Republican representative. So me reaching out to these people when no one thought they had a chance in hell of winning, that's going to pay huge dividends when we're at the bargaining, when we're asking for help for the Panhandle, because they're going to remember our support. They're going to remember how the conservatives in the Panhandle stood up for them when no one else would.
That's right, and that's the thing. And what a lot of people may not realize is they think, a lot of people that don't know how government works, all that, they think, oh, well, he's in there. Why can't he get this money?
Where's my bridge? Where's my,
Exactly. What they don't realize is it takes a team, basically. That's why South Florida gets all the money. They work together as a unit down there, and they fight for what they want. And we're up here just by ourselves, basically. That's why one of the things that you hit on hard on the trail was making a coalition of folks up here to do basically what they're doing, so we can get a cut of that pie, a bigger cut of that pie. So that's one of the things when I talk to folks out there, that was one of the big things that they liked right there. They liked hearing that somebody like, well, he's not just going to be a lone ranger. He's willing to work with other folks to fight for us. That says a lot about you right there. You know, you're just not me. You know what I mean?
That's a big push for the incoming speaker. We're going to have a great Speaker of the House, Paul Renner.
Yep.
He's coming out of Flagler Beach. I used to live on the east coast of Florida when I was doing my medical residency. I lived just south of there. That's right, Dr. Daytona. So Speaker Renner's coming from a conservative part of the state. He's a no-nonsense kind of guy. He definitely is going to be a good champion of conservatism, but that's one of his big pushes. He wanted us to have a cohesive team-building effort, and Tommy, let me tell you, it's going to pay dividends. I'm not one of these guys that lives for the campaign. I'm not one of these guys. Certainly, I'm not a career politician. Even today, I've got an alarm set on my phone because when Tommy's done with me, I'm going to see patients this morning. I mean, I've probably got people waiting on me right now. But my point is, Speaker Renner wanted us to get to know each other, to help each other out. Like I said, I don't love the campaign trail. They invited me to come down to help fellow candidates down in some of the harder districts in Orlando. Because, guys, there are blue pockets in Florida. Believe me, there's places where it's hard to be Republican and win. And those Republicans needed support. Mm-hmm. So even though I haven't knocked on a door in 3 months, even though, I hate, pushing literature on people.
Right. You're a regular guy.
I said, you know what? I'm going to help this guy out because I believe in this candidate. I believe in this guy. We need this colleague in the Florida House of Representatives. So the amazing thing, Tommy, is when you go participate in one of those events, it's not so much the door knocking. It's not so much hanging the flyer on the door or shoving it in the middle. It's the fact that you're there with other operatives from around the state, and you realize you're not alone.
Yeah.
You realize, wow, this is a team effort. Even in the Florida Panhandle with our 7 representatives from Pensacola to Port St. Joe, even though that's a team, we have a much bigger team that we're making with representatives from Gainesville, representatives from Pasco County, representatives from Amelia Island. So it's a big team building effort, and I applaud Speaker Renner for encouraging that sort of camaraderie. It's a great feeling.
Now, who were some of the ones on the trail, and maybe some of the other officials that you confided in a lot when you had a question or somebody that you needed help with or advice on? Who was some of the ones that you would reach out to that helped you, to get where you're at right now?
So every campaign has consultants or advisors. In my case, being a non-politician, I had one guy who pretty much, did mailers. Advised me on, well, this is what people normally do at this time.
Yep.
But in terms of, what to do here, what to do there, a lot of that is just instinct. A lot of that is just, well, I'm a citizen. I'm a normal guy.
Yep.
I hate government overreach. I hate government intrusion. What did I tell patients a year ago? What would I moan about or complain about when I'd be out on Navarre Beach to people? Well, those principles still hold true. And if I needed any confirmation on that, you don't go to consultants, you don't go to advisors, you go to the people in your district. So Tommy, whenever there was hesitancy, whenever maybe someone's asking me an issue that I never thought about before, you find the experts in that field. So if there's a problem that's facing Milton, like for example, Highway 90, right. Like for example, the wastewater treatment. Well, you're not going to find the answers in Navarre. You're not going to find the answers in Jay. You've got to go to the people in Milton and say, well, what is it you want? Right. Tell me the background. Tell me the basics on this. And so, Tommy, when you're out on the campaign trail trying to figure out where you stand, that's where you go. You go to the people that understand the issues. And there's no politician, there's no campaign consultant in the world who understands local politics better than the person whose door you're knocking on in Milton and Jay and Navarre.
Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, all those consultants, all that stuff, they're paid to think and question everything. They don't really know. They're not living there. They're just guessing is all they're doing, basically. It's an educated guess, but it's still a guess. You want a question, you want an answer, you go to the source right there.
Absolutely.
I love that in you right there. Thank you for doing that. Now, I got to ask you about your family. All right. Now, I know they will one heck of a lot with you as well, especially your wonderful wife.
Thank you.
How did they take all this, and how are they prepared for your new title and roles and everything?
So I don't think anyone's ever really prepared for something like this. I know I've shared with you before that when the thought entered my mind to do this, that was fresh after, we had that, I think he was a truck driver up in New Jersey who almost became governor, and he ran a campaign on $300 and almost became governor. So when you're upset at the way the country's going, when you want to see more leaders in government, when you want to see people who will stand up for conservative principles, you start off with a philosophical argument. You don't worry about the money. You don't worry about where the signs are going to come from. You don't worry about, well, who's going to support me, who's going to be at my rally. You just say, I want to do this. And then all that other stuff comes later. And so it starts off with an idea, but you're never really prepared for what that idea actually means. You think you're just going to sit out there, you think you're going to hold a rally like DeSantis where 10,000 people are just going to show up on a Saturday afternoon. It doesn't work like that. Tommy was with me on the trail where in the heat of the campaign, we would hold town halls and we'd be lucky if there were 16 people there.
Absolutely.
So it really is a very workman-like effort.
It's a humbling.
It very much is. So I was glad to put the legwork in. Like I said, I worked probably harder than I've ever worked in my life. My wife never saw me. If we would have a lunch break here in Navarre, between seeing patients, that would give me 1 hour to go knock out 12 or 13 more doors, and people would love that. They'd be like, "Aren't you working today?" And I'd say, "Well, yeah, but this is my lunch break. So right now I'm asking you to vote for." So people love seeing me around Holly by the Sea, and of course on the weekends when you had more time, you go up to Jay, you go up to Milton, you go up to Pace. So yeah, to answer your question. A lot of work. Not sure the family was ready, but they got behind me 100%. They knew it was going to be life changing, and we hope it's life changing for the best. Not for us, but for the people we represent in the 3rd District.
Right. I mean, I'm just going to say it like anyone else. You're not doing it to make money or build a name or anything like that. You're a doctor. You're not one of those out here struggling to survive. So you're obviously not doing it for money or anything like that. You're doing it because you guys care. You want what's best. You love your home, and you're ready to fight for it. And my goodness, it takes a special person to stand up and take that challenge on right there. Now, we're about 20 minutes into this thing right now. I don't want to go real long, but let's get into some other things real quick, some controversial stuff, if you will. First up, last night's election. What did you think about all the results and all the things that happened last night locally and across the country?
So Tommy, as I said earlier, there was a red wave. I'm a little discouraged by the fact that from where I sat last night, and people know this about me. They know that I'm not really tuned into national politics. I would say on the campaign trail, look, I'm not here to save Virginia. I'm not here to save California. I think California is beyond saving. I'm here to save the state of Florida. So I'm a little discouraged. I'm a little dismayed that other states apparently didn't make similar decisions as we did here in the state of Florida. It makes you wonder if they truly don't understand what it is that we have here in this state. Certainly I can tell you the people that lived in Florida, we value what we have. We know what we've got. We know it could have been a whole lot different. And we answered the call. People turned out in droves to vote. When you have a governor that wins by 20%, I'm not sure that's ever been done in the state of Florida. I'll have to check. I know Tommy's a historian. Tommy might know the answer to that.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I got to say one interesting fact about that last night. A lot of people don't know this. Charlie Crist has lost now as an independent, as a Republican, and as a Democrat. That right there is a first.
I had the privilege of speaking before Governor DeSantis at his Pensacola rally last week, and I was trying to come up with a tagline. I was trying to come up with something catchy, and one of the things I contemplated getting the crowd to go, "Sorry, Charlie," but I thought, we got more to offer than just some deadbeat Democrat. Instead of going negative, I threw that idea out. And instead, when I introduced the governor, I started a chant, simple chant. We just said, "Thank you, Ron," is what I came up with. Everything that was in my mind, I was like, at one point I was thinking, during my speech, I listed how we were different from all the other states. And at one point I was thinking, all right, well, I'm going to get the crowd to say, "Not in my state." But then when you think about it, when you know the tendencies of CNN, when you know the tendencies of MSNBC, being someone who was born and raised in the Deep South in Mississippi, I started thinking, I said, if I get this crowd to chant "Not in my state," that is something conceivably that CNN could twist and say, "Oh, look, they're racist, they're sexist, they're homophobic, not in my state." So the night before, I was like, I need to make this thing bulletproof. I need to make it where there's no way they can spin it negative, because I love my governor. I want to help my governor. How can I rephrase this? And so when we listed all the things that Virginia was doing, all the things that Michigan was doing, all the things that California was doing, and how Florida responded differently, instead of saying not in my state, we looked up to heaven and we said, thank you, Ron. Thank you, Ron. And you know what? It stuck. We had two other people talk after me, and during their speeches, the crowd was still saying, thank you, Ron. When the governor himself came out at Pensacola, when he listed his accomplishments, the crowd was still cheering, thank you, Ron. And I think we all, when you look at the nationwide results, we all owe him a debt of gratitude. It is unbelievable. What's going on in New Hampshire, what's going on in Pennsylvania, how they cannot see what we're seeing in Florida, I have no idea. And frankly, I don't care. I'm here for the state of Florida. I told my wife the other night, you notice my speeches from about June onwards, and even last night at my event, I don't reference America. I love America. America's my country. First and foremost, it's God bless the state of Florida, the great state of Florida. That's my priority right now. It's the priority of your legislature. We're going to take care of what we can take. We're going to let the national politics take care of itself. I'm here. You put me in Tallahassee for a reason. I'm going to let the better politicians than me. I'm going to let the Matt Gaetzes of the world and the Marco Rubios, I'm going to let them handle the D.C. politics.
Right.
Like I said, it's up to them to save America. I'm here to save Florida.
Right. Now, we had some things that, if you would have asked me a couple months ago who was going to win locally here, I would have easily said, like I said, Ray Eddington's a friend of mine. Dave Peach is a friend of mine. If you would have asked me at the start of that campaign, I would have said Ray had no chance. But Ray would have had no chance. I would have said that, I thought that Pete Peters was going to win after the primary, but we've seen some amazing things happen last night. And one of the things that it told me was people are upset. They're aggravated.
Yeah.
And it came out in droves last night in the show.
Absolutely.
Now, what was your thoughts on the local elections?
So locally, it was kind of a mixed bag, and they say all politics is local, and I think that was good proof of it last time. I know, as a private citizen, as a resident of the south end of Santa Rosa County, I know that there were certain people that have done great things in our end of the county.
Right.
I also know, as a person seeking office, I'm on the trail with these guys all the time. So you get to know personality, you get to know what people are really made of. First thing I want to say, with very few exceptions, no exceptions that I can think of, everybody that I'm thinking of right now, everybody whose name you saw on that general election ballot, these are good people, good men and women.
Yes,
I can't think of a single name right now that would sway me otherwise. Every choice you had yesterday evening was a fine choice. These are outstanding, upstanding citizens. So when you talk about Dave Peach, when you talk about Ray Eddington, when you talk about Pete Peters, Scott Peden, I know there were some really contentious issues and elections going on in the city of Milton yesterday evening.
Yeah, you better believe it.
We are so fortunate that you don't really have bad choices, and I think the people realize that.
Yeah.
You didn't see anybody lose 80 to 20. You didn't see anybody, So I think people realize, well, some of these are tough calls. We're lucky to have people willing to stand up and run.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about local politics, it's amazing how what matters to you may not necessarily matter to your neighbor next door.
Right.
For candidate A, I may say, well, I love the fact that candidate A is really keen on infrastructure, and that's a priority of mine. Well, your neighbor may say, well, I remember candidate A when I served with them in the military, or we worked on behind of our water board together, and I personally remember candidate A did this, so I'm voting for candidate,
Right.
and that's fair.
Everybody has their own reasons.
That's what elections are all about. We never want to discourage. We never want to discourage people from exercising their rights and for having their own opinions. Hopefully, the people of the 3rd District realize, I know they told me when they elected me, we want someone who's principled, we want someone who stands up for what he believes in. So in the past several weeks, you've seen me stand up for people that I trust, people that I like, causes that I believe in. If that wins the day, great. If it doesn't win the day, I hope people respect me for saying, wow, he didn't have to do that, but yet he's principled. He must not have been able to sleep at night unless he said his piece. And as a citizen, as a voter, that's everybody's right. And you certainly saw people exercise their rights last night, and God bless them. We've got some great people that were swept into office. I'm looking forward to working with all the new county commissioners. We've got Kerry Smith. We've got Ray Eddington. We've got some, from what I hear, Tommy, we've got some new members on the Milton City Council.
There was a heck of a race over between Marilyn Farrow and former Mayor Wes Mice. One vote.
Was it still one vote?
No, that's why it's so important for everybody to vote. One vote decided that race.
Absolutely. So, and we tried to set the tone last night, Tommy. For those of you who were at my event last night, you know that in my speech, we weren't rah-rah, we weren't red meat, like we were after the primary. We weren't let's go get them. My speech last night at my event focused on the fact that, look, everyone here believes the same thing, but that guy over there endorsed somebody else in the primary. That guy over there, I'm not even sure he voted for me. He's
Exactly.
My point is, we're all in it together now. And so when you look at candidates in races like Marilyn Farrow and Wes Meese, I know both of those individuals. Good individuals. You're asking me to choose between my favorite kids. Which kid's my favorite? So we have to understand that we were blessed with a lot of good choices. Ray Eddington versus Dave Peake, another example of that. So we have to realize that everyone's entitled to their opinion, and even though we may disagree on this matter or that, we have to understand we're all in it together. We're all pulling in the same direction, and the minute we stop pulling in the same direction, that's when we start looking like some of these other states that we don't want to go down that road. We don't want to change what the beautiful thing that we have here in the state of Florida.
Right. Now I've got to bring it up. And you know this. After the election, you and a couple other folks came out and openly endorsed Dave Peach. And oh my goodness, you would have kicked over a hornet's nest. You had folks that come out and said, oh, he's a rhino, he's this, he's that. The only reason he got in was because he said he would go against those that developers in DOCC. Now, you told me why you did it. Now, tell the citizens why you came out and endorsed Mr. Peach.
So, Tommy, it's funny you say that. You must have been at my event last night, Tommy, because I said this to my supporters last night. I said, the worst thing that happened to me on the campaign trail is when people question your values.
Right.
So, while I'm telling everybody, I don't care who you endorsed, I don't care what party you're registered under, I don't care whether you held your nose and voted for me or whether you wrapped your arms around me. I said, we're in this together now. I'm your representative. Whether you like it or not, I'm your representative, and I'm going to fight for you. If you got a problem, you come tell me, you come tell my aides. We're fighting for you, at least for the next 2 years.
Right.
And so I also said the worst thing in the campaign that anyone ever did to me is when you start questioning your values. You start questioning your moral. And you used a term just then. People throw this term around, rhino. All right? Guys, we need to quit fighting amongst ourselves. The Republican Party eats its own better than any party I've ever seen. If you want proof of that, look at the results in Pennsylvania, look at the results in Nevada, look at the results in other states where they're not as unified as we are here in Florida.
Yep.
The reason for our unification in Florida, we have a great speaker, Paul Renner. We have a great governor in Ron DeSantis. We have a great chief financial officer in Jimmy Patronis, great attorney. We understand we have to pull together in Florida. Don't let other forces, don't let other people rip us apart. So in terms of the Peach endorsement, here's the county commissioner who I personally see in church, every Sunday. We're both Catholic. We both attend the same church.
Right.
Dave lives right down the road from me. Here's a guy who, no one's record is perfect. I'll grant you that.
Absolutely.
There's going to be people who, after my 2-year term, there's going to be people who say, "Why'd you do this? Why'd you do that?"
Yep.
To me, it was about unfair attacks that Dave was getting. When you know someone, when you go to church services with them, when we bring our dogs together to get them blessed on the feast day of St. Francis of Assisi, when I have patients that are special needs, Tommy, we're coming to people from a coffee shop called Perfect Blend.
Yep.
Perfect Blend this is a coffee shop that hires people with special needs. So when I see these special needs families cry and hug Dave Peach, and then I try to reconcile that with what I see on Facebook, I just felt I had to set the record straight. Again, not telling people how to vote, but when people say this is a nasty man, this is he's making himself rich, I just wanted people to know, well, the Dave Peach I know goes to church every Sunday. The Dave Peach I know even brings his dogs to be blessed. The Dave Peach I know, I have patients that would take a bullet for him because of the projects that he's brought to. So it was more or less a matter of setting the record straight on Dave. If the people don't want to elect Dave, they certainly don't have to, and certainly they have spoken.
Yeah.
Now, by contrast, Ray Eddington's a great man. I know Ray personally, and Tommy, probably one of the most disappointing things in the last week was people baiting me, trying to get me to say something nasty about Ray. I mean, people aren't privy to this, but I got messages on my cell phone, I got private messages on Facebook where basically they're like, Ray hates you, you owe Ray, $5 because you were at his event and had a snow cone. People saying just really. So what they're trying to do, Tommy, they're trying to bait me. They're trying to get me to say something nasty about Ray. And you notice it never happened. Who can say anything nasty about Ray? I can't.
No, you can't.
I love Ray. It's just that the social mob, right? The mob that exists on social media, instead of making this about the issues, they tried to attack the fellow parishioner personally, and I just couldn't. I couldn't sit back and watch this happen, and I'm proud to stick up for a fellow Catholic. I'm proud to stick up for a fellow resident down here in Navarre. But that doesn't necessarily mean that he's got to be your servant. The people have chosen a different path, and I am cool with that. I look forward to working with Ray. Look forward to working with Carrie Smith. I look forward to working with all the other county commissioners as well. We're gonna hopefully do great things for Santa Rosa County.
And another thing, you wasn't the only one that came out and endorsed him, but you took the most heat, of course, because I don't need to name the other names, but everybody knows it. But they are gone. They're retired. Okay, you just happen to be the flavor of the month right now.
Right.
So you took the heat of it, and you took it well. So
there's gonna be a lot of things that are gonna come up in the legislature in the 60 days of 2023. There's gonna be things that I may not agree with personally,
right,
but that benefit my district.
Absolutely.
There's unfairness throughout the Florida statutes, and there are things that benefit physicians. There are things that benefit me personally that I'm already looking at. I'm like, why is that in the statute? Who put that there? Maybe I shouldn't care because it benefits me, but it's not fair. Let's get that out of the statute. There's all kinds of things, Tommy. There's situations where people move here to Florida just like we're asking them to. I have a constituent who moved to Florida as a physical therapist, wants to work as a physical therapist aide. That's what they did in a northern state for 20 years.
Right.
They moved to Florida. Our laws, our statutes are written differently. They can't hold the job in Florida that they held in New York, even though they're very qualified, even though they've got decades of experience.
Yeah.
And so it's the unfairness of it. And so that's what I hope to impact and to change. And like I said, so if anything, people who heard me be bold, people who heard me say this or say that. I'm going to say something this week about that scumbag Nicholas Cruz, that Parkland shooter down in. I'm going to post something either today or tomorrow about Nicholas Cruz, and I hope you guys agree with what I say on that, because there's going to be issues that matter that you may not necessarily say. You might have to sit back and say, why did he say that, or what's that about? One of the things we want to encourage you to do, it's all about trust.
Right.
So when I say that I would like to change the Florida statutes, when I say that any mass murderer should automatically get the death penalty, I don't care what your religious beliefs are. I don't care if you're against the thought of killing another individual. I want you to understand this is a principle. This is something I've thought long and hard about. And to be honest, for me, it's not a difficult decision. How that guy is getting life in prison, I have no idea. So when I represent you and go to Tallahassee and say, we need to change this statute, that we need to make it where mass murderers get the automatic death penalty. No debate. Once they're tried and convicted, none of this, sweating and anguishing over what do we do with them. We need to change that law, change that statute.
Waiting 70 years to put them to death.
And there's going to be many things like that. There are things written into the law where, Tommy, in terms of people's rights, in terms of legal rights, there are cases where, based on your age, based on your wealth or lack of wealth, based on the fact of whether you have children or successors or not, there are things written into our statute where people are treated differently based on whether they're 25 or 26, or based on whether they're married or unmarried, or based on whether they have kids or not. And so to me, it's all about eliminating unfairness, but we're going to do this with conservative values. And again, I can't wait to run the list with you of some of these things that people are telling me about.
I want to, before we head out of here, is there any message you would like to leave the citizens with before you get to work over there doing your day job?
Probably the biggest thing that I've had to learn, and again, this is what I was telling my constituents last night at my event, for those of you that are there. The biggest thing that people don't know that we all need to work on and we all need to learn: criticism is something that needs to be fair and measured.
Absolutely.
So and maybe not just even criticism, maybe expectations. Maybe we all need to remember when we were kids and we wanted something, and our parents used to tell us, how do you get what you want? Do you yell and scream and cry? Or are you persuasive? Do you set out a valid argument? Are you respectful? I was at the DeSantis event on Tuesday, on stage with them, gave what I thought was a real good speech, fired everybody up.
Yeah, it was.
Our governor, the greatest governor in the nation, is up there running through his accomplishments. Yeah. There were people in the crowd, Republicans, die-hard Republicans, okay, yelling things at him. Some of the comments were about the vaccine, which, as far as recommendations go, the state of Florida is leading the way in terms of turning the tide against the vaccines. We have a Surgeon General who, if you look up official Florida recommendations, Florida does not recommend the vaccine for males ages 18 to 39. Florida does not recommend the vaccine for children. I am pushing hard for our Surgeon General to also include pregnant ladies on that not recommended list. So baby steps, right? You do one thing, then another, then another. Baby steps take time. So as I'm talking to the state Surgeon General about adding more restrictions to the vaccine, don't give it for this, don't give it, really, I'd like that list to be totally comprehensive. I'd like them to pull it off the market, but that's not my call. That's the FDA's call. So as I'm trying to get things accomplished with the state surgeon general, if I have a fellow conservative, if I have a fellow doctor out in the audience yelling things, acting disrespectful, acting like they don't understand the process, how effective do you think that makes my phone call? I have a guy, while I was tending to a family emergency last week, I had a supporter text me in the middle of the night. What happened on this particular night, I don't know, but I guess he had just had enough. He texted me, and it was a group text. It was to me, to the Surgeon General, to the Attorney General, and to the Governor. I guess I should be honored to be included on a group text with those three. I wasn't honored at all, because the text said, "You scumbags, I'm not voting for any of you ever again. Y'all are letting kids die, blah, blah, blah," So I get this text as I'm caring for a family emergency. And once my emergency had been taken care of, I call this guy back, because I'm like, what the heck? And he explains to me that he's not going to wait anymore. He is tired. Nothing gets done. DeSantis is no good. Ladapo is no good. Ashley Moody. And I'm included in this text. I have to remind this guy. And remember, he's a supporter.
Right.
He's a donor. I have to remind this guy, I'm not even elected yet. This was last week. I said, I'm not even elected yet. Well, why am I on this text? And then I had to remind him of all the accomplishments that DeSantis has done. And I had to remind him about those restrictions that Joe Ladapo, our Surgeon General, has already put. I said, so I understand. I said, your goals are my goals. I am actively talking to them about this. But, sometimes people, they feel like they want to, they feel like, well, if I threaten DeSantis, that'll make them see my point of view. No, threats do not work.
Right.
And so again, I can tell you that in my own personal experience, both with legislation that I want to, so in this case, when Ladapo sees my name on a group text where someone is saying, "We hate you all, you're not working fast enough," what if he were to cross-reference that name and to see that that's a donor of mine?
Yeah.
Do you think Ladapo would ever take a call from me ever again? So guys, there's a right way to do this, and there's a wrong way to do this. In regards, Tommy, to what you asked earlier about people that I know personally who I felt obligated to stand up for their character,
Right.
to get a message saying, well, you must not have known that candidate did this or that. That's fair. That's constructive criticism. Well, I can't support the guy who goes to church with you because of this. That's fair criticism.
Right.
To text me in the middle of the night and say, I withdraw my support of you. You're a scumbag. Blah, blah. We're going to hit you where it hurts. We're going to encourage everybody to write in the name of an 80-year-old woman who has no interest in the job, who that's not
a failed candidate to try to shut off the.
That's not constructive criticism.
Right.
So again, I think the biggest take-home in terms of what I'd like to leave my district with, guys, I'm a doctor. I have to tell people I have to tell someone in 10 minutes things they're probably not going to want to hear.
Right.
And they may give me a mouthful of something I don't want to hear, right? How many times have y'all been to a doctor where you fire your doctor, or you say, well, I don't want to take that medicine, or I don't believe in taking lipid, So I'm in a position where there's a lot of give and take. Right. I say things you don't want to hear. You say things I don't want to hear.
Absolutely.
As long as it's respectful and on the level, I've got big shoulders. I can take it.
Right.
What I can't take are ad hominem attacks, personal attacks on character, on dignity. Defending someone that I know personally, that I attend church with, y'all should not be disparaging that. Y'all should say, okay, I get that.
Right.
I disagree, but but I understand.
Right.
And I can tell you that when I work to restore gun rights for our 18-year-olds, our 19-year-olds, our 20-year-olds in the state of Florida, there's going to be people in parts of this state who they're going to disagree with me.
Absolutely.
I hope they will be respectful, because again, these are positions that I have. When I talk about restoring gun rights, that is not to harm or hurt the people who had to live through Parkland. It's to help the people that made it through Parkland. Because I don't think the answer is disarming the public. The answer is to protect our treasure even stronger. But people in South Florida are going to criticize me for that. That's okay. That's what these shoulders are for. The same thing is true when I go to the legislature and I say, why are we taxing our farmers to death? There are going to be people that say, well, why not?
Right.
And they're just going to have to understand that I respectfully disagree. I'm always going to protect our farmers. When I go there and ask money for an alternate solution to Highway 98 in Santa Rosa County, they're going to be like, we've got a 98. We've got other projects that need. I'm going to say, no, you have to understand. This is not an offense. This is not me trying to pick up. This is me standing up for what I believe in, because my constituents need an alternate 98. So again, if you like these things that I've mentioned to you briefly, hey, great. I hope you all like everything I just said. Protecting the Second Amendment, protecting your freedom, building infrastructure. I want to make school board elections partisan again. How many of you went and voted for school board and it says nothing mentioned? It just has a name. It won't tell you it won't tell you their affiliation. I think that's wrong. People are going to say, well, it's been that way since 1998. I don't want to change it. Well, I respectfully disagree. So if you like these policies that I'm talking about, fantastic. If you disagree with me, that's okay too. But, tell me why you disagree. Don't threaten me. Don't say, well, I'll show you. I'm not voting for you in 2 years. I have said many times that the best thing anyone could have done for me was to let me go back to being a doctor, because as Tommy alluded to, people don't go to the state legislature to get rich. People don't go to the state legislature to be famous. I've actually had candidates sit in my office in years past who were pissed off. They wanted to run for state legislature, but they decided against it. And when I said, well, you're into politics, why are you not running? They said, because it doesn't pay anything. So just understand, we're not doing this to get famous. We're doing this to represent you. And the day that I quit speaking for you is the day that you elect someone else. And I hope you're proud of what I accomplished for you. I hope Tommy's mentioned some names here that I get choked up about. I had somebody call me this morning and make the comparison to Greg Evers. Now, I never met Greg.
Great man.
I called Greg for an issue. I can't remember I think it's probably something to do with Blue Cross or something, Medicare. It had to have been something medical. Greg didn't know me from Adam. And think of how many calls Greg Evers would get on a daily basis. Greg would follow up with me a week later. Hey, did my people get that resolved for you? He'd call me from the road. Hey, I'm working hard on that issue you told me. And I'm thinking, this guy doesn't know me, but he's willing to fight for me. And so when people call me up this morning, the person who made the comparison, Tommy, it's actually somebody who disagreed with me on a topic. They disagreed with me over on school board. But for a person who can respectfully disagree with me, to turn around in the same conversation and say, you remind me of a young Greg Evers, that is the best compliment that I could get from anybody. And I'm not in this for compliments, but I hope to get many more compliments like that. And I hope to earn each and every one of those.
Well, like I told you at the start of this, I knew him. I learned from him. He's one of the ones that taught me about politics. And you do have a lot in common with him. He was an everyman. He was a regular guy. He loved his home. He wanted what was best. He didn't give a damn about Tallahassee or politics. When he come home, he was out on his farm on his tractor doing his own thing, like you are. But
right.
You're at home, you're over there
right.
at your business.
That's right.
Doing, taking care of patients. there's a lot in common right there, and I can agree with that right there. The only difference is his profession was he was out in the dirt. Yours is over here. You're in a different kind of dirt.
Different kind of dirt.
That's it. But other than that, absolutely, man. I just want to say I'm proud to call you my friend.
Thank you, Tommy.
And my representative.
Thank you, Tommy.
I've always got your back.
Awesome.
And if you ever have any questions, comments, concerns, whatever, I'm there for you, man.
Well, and there are people who have. There's my patient. So there are people who have supported me. There are people who voted for me. Who, we may have gone into this with different perspectives, but they at least voted for me because they understood that I would sit down with them. Even though we may respectfully disagree, they would like, well, will you at least listen to my point of view?
Right.
And I said, absolutely. Pull up a chair. Educate me on what I don't know.
Bingo.
That's how you have effective government. Not by threatening DeSantis, not by threatening LaDapo. You tell me what they don't know, and I will respectfully relay that to them in an appropriate manner.
That's right. All right, buddy. I know you got to get to your patients. So
Thank you so much, Tommy.
Thank you.
Appreciate you, buddy.
Good luck with everything.
Thanks, guys. Hey, it's Dr. Joel Rudman, State Representative for House District 3. And if you want to know what's going on in Florida politics, especially politics here in the Florida Panhandle, you have one choice. Blue Collar Voice with Tommy Nichols. That's my bud. Go get him, Tommy.